This is the Wednesday Wideout Podcast with Ben Kaysen and Trey Graham.
Welcome to the Wednesday Wideout. This is a special week here. It is Thanksgiving break, and Ben is not here with us, so I'm Trey, and I'm here with Jacob, and we're going to keep you covered with the NFL action. It was a big week here in the NFL. So let's go ahead and get right into our surprises. We're going to start with the Broncos. They had a really big win this week. They beat the Chargers. The Chargers were sitting at 7-2. They were second in the division behind the Chiefs. This was a huge win for the Broncos. This is one that I don't think many expected them to win. Probably none, really. The Chargers had been playing really hot. They've been doing well on offense, and their defense had just been stepping up. They also had Joey Bosa back, one of their best defenders. So this is a game that nobody expected them to win, and they went out there and got a big-time win. Von Miller had a nice interception. Unfortunately, he got hawked in that. I was laughing at that. Travis Benjamin had a little bit too much speed for him, but regardless, nice game. And I think the biggest surprise for me from the Broncos was Phillip Lindsay. I know this guy was having a great season, but I didn't expect him to play the way he did.
Right, I definitely agree with you because this being a surprising win and a big win for the Broncos, just because usually don't see this Bronco team doing really good against a top-tier opponent. And I think Chargers are, let alone the top in the division, I think they're one of the top teams in the NFL right now. But I'm just shocked that they were able to let these Bronco guys win. I do not think Broncos have been on top of their game by any means, but this game they really showed out, especially that defense. They showed up, and then, like you're saying, Phillip Lindsay came out and had a good game as well. But then if you're if you're a guy on the Chargers team, you got to be thinking, like, what do we need to do to get better? And when are we going to start? Because we got to get it done now because, as we know, the season's slowly coming to the end. I do think they'll get into the playoffs. But you can't be having these big mistakes in the playoffs where you're letting teams slip by you by a couple of points just because they outplayed you a little bit.
Yeah, getting back to Phillip Lindsay, he had 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he had a big game. He's increasingly getting himself a bigger role in that offense. So he had a nice game. But like you were saying, I was just really surprised by the way the Broncos fought back in this game. The Chargers took the lead late. I believe there were only a couple minutes left on the clock. And I thought, man, another classic game of the Broncos where they're in it and then they find a way to lose at the end, you know. And this time they were able to come back. Case Keenum had a couple of nice connections with Cortland Sutton, and they were able to drive down the field and set up the field goal with McManus, and they got the win. So that was definitely a big win.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think there's any way the Broncos can go into playoffs at all?
No, at this point, I don't think so. I just feel like they've got a lot of problems on this team, and to do so, they would basically have to win out and try and sneak in a wild card spot, and I just don't know if they can do that. They're still going to have to play the Chargers again, and I just can't see them winning out, and that's the only way I think they get in.
All right, and now let's go ahead and go on to our other surprise. Well, not my surprise. I was high on the Bears when the season started, but you put Bears as one of your surprises. Why is that?
So I just feel like the Vikings are a better overall team than the Bears, and the Vikings were a team that I thought was going to have a good shot of being one of those top 5 teams coming into this season. They've got a great defense, and I think Kirk Cousins was definitely an upgrade at quarterback. They've been playing, pretty decent all season. And I did like what the Bears had rolling for them, and they've been playing pretty darn well. But this wasn't a game that a lot of people thought they would win. And the Bears just continue to go out there and play good football. And I think that's what surprises me the most. This is a division that's not easy. I know the Lions are a bit of a laughingstock, but they can still win. They still have a pretty high-powered offense. And then you've got the Vikings, who are a solid all-around team, and the Packers with Aaron Rodgers. So, it's not an easy division. And at this point, they look like the best team in that division. The way that defense is playing and the way they're putting up points on offense, Matt Nagy has gotten that team together, and they're looking really good to me right now. And I was just surprised that they beat the Vikings the way they did. And this is a game that I thought was going to be closer, and the Vikings just sort of didn't get what I thought they would on the Bears.
I'm kind of like the opposite of that, is where I thought the Bears were going to win this game, just because, the Vikings are just one of those teams you circle on your roster. But I think when it comes to this division, Bears definitely had the Vikings circled up. They knew it was going to go down, and they needed to get the job done. And I think the defense has been key for the Bears, and then the offense came and showed up a little bit. And so when you have that great combination of that offense and defense coming together, doing a good job, they come away with the win, and I think they did it perfectly here. No surprise for me. I knew they were going to come in. They were going to be a little fired up because facing one of these bigger teams, and they got the job done.
Yeah, I like I said, Jacob, I was just really surprised at the way that defense played. I knew they were good, but I didn't think that they were going to hold the Vikings. Literally, in the first 3 quarters, they held that Vikings offense to 3 points.
Right.
And the Vikings scored a little bit in the third quarter or in the fourth quarter to make it a close game, but they were dominant out there. And that's the thing that surprised me the most. And I think they're in a great position. I think that they're definitely going to win their division. So let's go ahead and move on. We've got another pretty big surprise. Lamar Jackson. He had a pretty solid game all around in his first start as a quarterback for the Ravens. He had 117 yards on the ground, which is the second most all-time by a rookie quarterback, and he also led his team to a victory. So all in all, I was pretty surprised with the way he performed. I wasn't sure if he was going to lead his team to a victory, but he got the job done. And looking at the way the Ravens game planned with him, I loved it. I think too many teams try and make their players fit into their system, and not enough teams adjust their system to fit the players. And I think that Harbaugh and the Ravens did a nice job scheming around him, making him comfortable in that offense. And I think it showed. He had a pretty good game with his legs. I don't know how consistently he's going to be able to do that, because I think teams are going to focus on that more in the future. But regardless, great start for him.
Right, and I think we talked about this a little bit on the press boxes, whether or not his gameplay would translate well to this Ravens offense. And as we saw, he comes away with a win, doing an okay job, and goes to show you, usually when you have an aggressive player out there, especially in the quarterback position, it's risky, but once he comes out and performs and does what he needs to do, and it's okay, maybe we can work with this kid. And I definitely think if you keep Lamar Jackson doing what he's been doing right now, I think you'll see him do a lot of good things in the upcoming years. Granted, in the upcoming years, he's going to have to switch up his gameplay a little bit. He just can't be that guy who, this quarterback likes to run. We're going to find him on the run every single time. We did see him throw an interception this game, but it just goes to show you, young, kind of nervous, first starting game, those kind of hit you. And they played the Bengals, not a super great defense, but at the same time, you got a young quarterback in there. He's going to make a mistake. But he just needs to they just need to iron those things out, fix all the things that they saw that were negative in that game. But there was also a lot of positive, and they came away with the win. So overall, just a positive performance by Lamar Jackson in that quarterback position.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that he's definitely got to improve when it comes to his arm and a little bit of his decision making, but I think it was a great start, and he definitely has some stuff to work with. His legs are outstanding, and he can make people miss like pretty much no other quarterback I've ever seen. So if he can keep improving in the passing game, I think this guy could be special. Let's move on to another quarterback that has surprised me a little bit in this season. It's Andrew Luck, and he led his team to a huge victory against the Titans. They whooped up on him. I believe the final score was 38-10. He had 3 touchdowns, and that makes his last 7 games he's thrown at least 3 touchdowns. That's an incredible streak, and they've won 3 in a row now. They're back to 500, and now they're second in the division. And the Colts are just playing really well on offense, and I've been surprised with the way Andrew Luck has sort of stepped up. That offensive line playing a lot better than they were early in the season. And I think they're in a pretty good spot right now, Jacob.
They definitely are, especially when you talk about that pass rush. They're giving Luck a lot of time in that pocket to make good decisions, and he's doing a great job making sure his receivers are open and getting the ball right to him. I think he can keep this going. I think there's a lot of opportunity here for him to be still performing at this. A lot of times you'll see teams where they'll get really hot during the season and then they back off. But when the reason you're getting hot, I feel like, is because your offensive line. That's huge, because when the offensive line gets hot, they stay hot. They've been waiting all year to get a lot of praise. They've been waiting all year. Now the time's to shine, and then they're going to shine throughout the rest of the year. And I think they're going to make it into playoffs if they keep on playing like this, like 3 touchdowns every game, passing touchdowns. It's hard to say that a team like that isn't going to get into the playoffs and make a little bit of noise.
Yeah, I think the Colts are starting to get healthy, and this offense has just looked fantastic. And I really think that this year has been all about offense in the NFL. A lot of the good defenses that I thought were going to come into the season and play really well and shut down their opponents have not done that. We've seen the Rams offense go off. We've seen the Saints, the Chiefs, the Packers. All of these offenses have just gone off. And to me, the Colts are right there. If their offensive line keeps playing the way that they can and the way that they are right now, this team is running the ball well. They're giving Andrew Luck time. The big problem with Andrew Luck in the past was that he's had to do it all on his own. And because of that, it affects his decision-making. He is more prone to turnovers. And he was also not really comfortable in the pocket. That's why he was injured for so long. This isn't the case anymore. This guy's starting to get back to where he was before all of his injuries, and he's looking great right now.
Right, indeed. And now, let's go on to our disappointments of Week 11 in the NFL. One of them is definitely going to have to be the Eagles. We were talking about it, reigning Super Bowl champions, come out against the Saints and lay an egg. Like, big-time loss. The Saints, really good this year, but reigning Super Bowl champs aren't able to get anywhere close to scoring on this team. They score once on this Saints team, and, man, what is going on with the Eagles?
I don't know. The Eagles are one of those teams that they're just really struggling this year, and I don't really have the answer, and I don't know if the Eagles have the answer, otherwise things would be different. Look, this team is still really talented, but they just got beat 48-7. 48-7. That is ridiculous, and that offense is still really talented. There is absolutely no reason why they should only be putting up 7 points against the Saints. And granted, the Saints have been playing pretty well on defense, but that offense is way better than 7 points a game. I don't really have the answers for the Eagles. They're just finding a way to lose games every week, and Ben talked about it a little bit last week. I definitely think teams are obviously more aware that this is a team you have to circle on your calendar. This is a team that they're game planning for week in and week out, their opponents are. And I think they're suffering from it. This is a team that's still good. I just don't see them making the playoffs right now. They're not in a good spot, Jacob.
No, definitely not. And another group that's not been in a good spot for a while now are the Jags. The Jags get the win from the Patriots, come back the last couple weeks and back-to-back losses, and this is bad for the Jags. This puts them. Does it put out the bottom of the division? I think they're on.
Yeah, they're last place, 3-7, right. Last place in the division.
Last place in the division. When they came in, they were looking good. That defense was looking good, and now bottom of the division, really struggling. Have dug themselves a deficit. We were talking about this earlier before the show. If they want to make it into the playoffs, they need to win out. And I don't think that's possible. Essentially, since they're so down, they got a lot of negative momentum in their favor. So I don't see them doing anything too productive in the upcoming games.
Yeah, it's tough because, again, this is a team that has so much talent. That defense is still not playing bad. And granted, they're not playing as well as they did last year, but they're still really good, I think. And I think they're good enough to win, but the offense is just hurting them so much. Blake Bortles is doing nothing out there. This dude is throwing for like 100 yards a game. And I feel like the Jags are they're scared to throw him, to make him throw the ball. And because of that, they're so one-dimensional. It's insane. And I don't think you can win like that. They're also hurting with a couple injuries on the offensive line, and so the running game isn't as strong as maybe it was last year. This team is just struggling. Another team that we're disappointed with this week, the Packers. Again, Aaron Rodgers, probably in my opinion, best quarterback in the NFL right now. I know we debated that, but he's right up there. And this Packers offense is just out of sync right now. They lost against the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are definitely not one of those top contenders in the NFL, if you ask me. They're a middle-of-the-road team at best, and the Packers are just finding a way to lose games week in and week out, and there's no reason that should happen. Mike McCarthy needs to run the ball more. This offensive line is doing really well in the running game. I think they were in the top 5 in average yards per carry. So they need to run the ball and to try and take some of the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers, because even he can make mistakes out there. This Packers team just has problems, and as it sits right now, with them and the Vikings and the Bears all in the same division, I think they're going to find a hard time making the playoffs. They have to have a complete 360 if they want to have any shot at that.
Right, indeed. And then one of our other disappointments, and not for the player at all, but just the circumstances, Alex Smith getting that big injury, fracturing his tibia and fibula, just a big loss for this team, losing one of their essential players, and this hurts them big time.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback position is still the most important position in the NFL, probably still in all of sports. This was a gruesome injury. If you haven't seen it, it is very gruesome. And it was crazy, the circumstances, because it happened on the same day, 33 years after Joe Theismann's injury. Literally the same day, 33 years after. Joe Theismann was at that game. Right. Now, if that's not bad mojo, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy circumstance, crazy situation. Hurts the Redskins big time. It's going to be difficult to see them after this loss.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely done, I think. That offense is just not going to put up points anymore, and I don't know if their defense is quite good enough to win just on its own. They are really good, but now that they lost their starting quarterback, I have a hard time seeing them go anywhere. I think they're going to struggle for the rest of the season.
Yes, sir. And then two disappointing defense. One has been consistently disappointing. The other showing us that, hey, we might not be that good. And that was the Chiefs and Rams game. Everybody's saying this is the best game of football, the game of the year. Me and Trey both disagree that this was kind of one of those rough – it was an exciting game to watch, but one of those rough games to watch. One of those games you stand up during and just yell at the TV because you're like, what are you doing out there? Chiefs and Rams go at it. Rams come away with the win. The score was 52-51. Crazy to see this happen. The Chiefs' defense has been bad consistently all year long, but Pat Mahomes has found a way to usually get them on top of the scoreboard when it comes to throwing the ball down. Him and Tyreek Hill, good combo down there in Kansas City, doing a really good job. Just couldn't come away with the win this time.
Yeah, Jacob, we definitely feel the same way. Everybody thought this was the most exciting game, and it was a great game. It was exciting. But I've said it before, I like defense. I don't like watching both teams just go down the field, like scoring every single possession. I mean, what's the point of having a defense out there if they're just going to give up points every single possession? To me, it's not the most fun. And I would rather see a tough, hard-fought game where one offense has to prevail or one defense has to make a big play. I would rather see a close game like that than just a straight shootout and whoever scores in the last possession is going to win the game. It was fun to watch, but it's not my kind of football. And those defenses have to improve. We've seen a lot of defenses struggle in the NFL this year, and I don't know if that's got to do with the rule changes. They're already heavily weighted in favor of the offense, and that's only going to continue, I feel like. But the offenses in the NFL right now are just all of the top-level teams are oriented around the offense. I feel like the defenses are pretty much, all the good ones at least, are struggling. I think it's going to continue, and it's just not my favorite kind of football.
Right, I totally agree with you. And I was looking at the game. The Rams didn't let anything happen in the third quarter for the Chiefs. They let one touchdown slide, but then the fourth quarter, 21 points they let go. That's 3 touchdowns. Pat Mahomes doing his job out there, trying to get the job done. Defense for the Rams able to bend but not break. But at the same time, why are you holding people to a 1 score in one quarter and then 3 scores in the other? You can't have that kind of consistency if you want to be. You can't have that kind of consistency if you want to go and play in the playoffs and win the big game.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right about that. It's not a good look for either of these teams looking at the playoffs. You can't put everything on your offense. You've got to be able to come out on defense and make a stop sometime. And I guess the Rams did that on their last 2 defensive possessions. They got back-to-back interceptions, but still, that's not enough. You cannot give up 21 points in the fourth quarter and expect to win every game. So not the way that the Rams needed to finish that game, at least on defense. So let's move into some takeaways. We talked about some of these already, but let's get right into it. I think the Eagles are not going to make the playoffs. I feel like they're just in trouble right now. They're hurting with some injuries. Their defense isn't what they were last year, and they're just going to continue to struggle. They're in a competitive division, and at their position right now, I think they're sitting at 4-6. They're another one of those teams that pretty much has to win out if they want to make the playoffs. I don't know if I see that happening. They still have a couple of tough games left. They have the Texans left, and they have a couple of division games left. So I think they could lose at least one of those games, and I think that pretty much knocks them out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with that one. Another takeaway of mine is the Redskins are done this season. It's unfortunate that Alex Smith got hurt right there, but, when you lose your top player, a player that you made a big trade for, trading Kirk Cousins for Alex Smith to see if he can do something with your team, and he's hurt now, and don't think he'll be back. Definitely won't be back for the season. Don't know how well he'll come back next year. They're done for the season mentally and just physically. I don't think they have anywhere to go from here without Alex Smith.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So my next takeaway is that the Bears are going to win the division. This is another one we talked about already, but I feel like as a team, they're in a great position. They're starting to gain some grit. They're starting to play together as a whole. The offense has a good formula. They know how to run the ball, and they've got Tariq Cohen. He's a nice little gadget guy out there. Trubisky's playing pretty well. They know how to score points on offense, but that defense is really great. They're playing great football right now. I think they're going to continue, and I think they're going to win the division.
I also agree with that. I think I've been high on Bears all season long. I think they're going to win the division for sure. No doubt in my mind. Another team that I'm super interested at looking at is the Colts. The Colts started off the season kind of slow. A lot of teams kind of slept on them, including I slept on them. I didn't think they were going to do anything this year, but they're slowly coming back. When you have Luke out there throwing 3 touchdowns a game, that's important. That's key. They just got to keep on rolling with that offense and hope that defense can follow along. If they do that, they can sneak into playoffs, or maybe if they win out, could get the division title.
Yeah, Jacob, I definitely agree with you. The Colts are in a great spot, and when it comes to later in the season, I think this is a team that other teams are going to be scared to play because of how high-powered that offense is. And they're going to need to score and put up points, so they're going to continue to be aggressive. That defense isn't going to help them out, and I think that offense is going to continue to roll. So my last takeaway here is that the Texans are right there among the best teams in the NFL right now. So the Texans have played and won 7 straight games, started out 0-3, and they've really picked it up. This offense is clicking, and that defense is playing all right. They're playing good enough to win. That pass rush is still really good. You got J.J. Watt out there. You got Jadeveon Clowney. You've got Whitney Merciless. This is a team, to me, that is pretty similar in build to the Eagles of last season, where they've got a really good defensive line, and they've got an offense that can just straight put up points. I feel like they're in a good position. They're in a division that's really not great right now. I know we talked about the Colts being pretty good. The Titans and Jags are they're not bad, but they're also not playing very good football right now. They're in a great spot, and I think the way their offense is playing with Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, they're going to continue to win. I think they're definitely getting right up there in the discussion of a top 5 team in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I agree with you. And now let's go ahead and look at the NFL power rankings. So far, after Week 11, this is what the NFL says of the power rankings. Number 1, they have Saints. Number 2, Rams. Number 3, Chiefs. And number 4, Steelers. Rams bumping up to number 2 because they beat the Chiefs. And then the Steelers, after the win against the Jags, bump up to number 4, bumping the Patriots down to number 5. But, I don't totally agree with these rankings. For me, Saints are, of course, number 1. I think that number 4 spot is the only one I would change. I'd put Patriots up in that number 4 spot. I think the Steelers are doing good. They're doing good and establishing themselves towards the end of the regular season here. But I still think the Patriots get a bye week this week, going to come back, going to still be on fire as usual. And we're going to see a lot from them. They're going to win their division, make some noise in the playoffs. I think they're going to make it to that Super Bowl game. Don't know. But then after that, I also would had a discussion with my friend over the break so far, and he was talking like there was the 4 top teams and then a drop off. I think we're seeing that drop-off kind of get built up a little bit, and I'm talking about the Bears, the Texans, and Pittsburgh. I think they've all been playing well recently, and I feel like they have the potential to beat any of these 4 top-tier teams. I wouldn't say the Saints right now. The Saints are on fire. I don't think these teams have the potential to beat Saints. But later on in the playoffs, where the Saints kind of slow down, try to get cool, collected, get ready for that big Super Bowl, I think they have the potential there. But I think any of these other teams, I think they have the potential of beating.
Yeah, Jacob, I like where those teams that are just outside the top 5 that you mentioned, so the Texans, the Steelers, and Bears, I think that they're right there. Those are good teams. Those are all teams that I expect to make the playoffs and could even win a couple games in the playoffs. I don't think teams are going to want to play them. As far as these power rankings are concerned, I think the 1 and 2 are definitely right. I think the Saints are on fire. The Rams are the second best team as of now. I think if they can figure out their defense, they're the best team in the NFL. But that defense is struggling right now. As far as 3, 4, and 5 are concerned, I would put the Steelers at 3 right now. I think that the offense is starting to figure it out, and I think that defense is definitely better than the Chiefs' defense is. The Chiefs are pretty much there on offense alone, and I don't know if that's going to be a formula for success in the playoffs. They still could put up points, but I think to win in the playoffs, you have to have a good defense, and they definitely don't have that right now. So I'd probably put them at 4, and then the Patriots are sitting at number 5. I like where they're at. They're coming off a big loss, but they only really have 2 competitive games left because the rest of their games are against the Bills and the Jets. They still have the Vikings and the Steelers on the schedule. So those are 2 games that they've got to win. But other than that, they're in a really good spot. They've got some easy games to win. So I'd put them at 5. All right. Well, we want to thank you for listening to the Wednesday Wideout. I'm Trey Graham, and this is Jacob Sandoval. And this is a student media production. We want to thank you. Be sure and tune in next week. Mr. Ben, he's going to be back from break, and we're going to be keeping you up to date with all the NFL action. So thank you for listening.